What I fucking... What? What I, in fact, witnessed was a fellow grave robber at work. A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about? Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole he'd dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see. You're claiming it was just another student on equally insalubrious business as yourself. Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissections. Clearly, the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity, wouldn't you say? But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, in the next second, a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more. We might assume that the sexton discovered the miscreants at work, perhaps, and fired upon one of them. If a gravedigger had shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might have been rather big news, my lord. Ah, yes, well... I can only assume it was an embellishment, bolted on later by the reporter. What you got?
Excuse me.
Madam Two Spells. Don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes. Ooh la la, pardon. I was lost in my thoughts. Would it be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significant to you in some way? I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this now. If you don't mind me saying, madame, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gunshot. Stop. You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady. Grr. Please, Madame Two Spells, carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him, and the bullet hit the condemned man. I said nothing of the sort. No, you are very explicit about the details. About the mask that the figure was wearing, and the blood that spattered over you when he was shot. Enough. Shut up, woman. You're making this all up. That will do. Mr. Drebber. Yes? You refute the account just given by Madame Two Spells? I have no recollection of ever saying those things. Come on! Do you really expect us to control yourself, counsel? I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom. Right. Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this, witness. Very well. And now I should be able to just present the camera straight away.
Objection!
Boom. Boom shakalaka, as they said in 1915's England. Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera? But that is the camera from that fateful night. Yeah, I stole it. No big deal. Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber. And is that supposed to be significant? This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed that the lens extends forwards on the end of some bellows. Like this.
Hold it!
Whoa! He gave us a fancy hold it. He's never said that. What's that? There, just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain. Ah. That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact. Good Lord, are you suggesting? Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a spatter of blood. Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Sith? It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood and not the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough. I propose that Madame Two-Spell's testimony was correct, and that on the night in question 10 years ago, you were spattered with blood from the gunshot wound. Well, And that, furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. Gag! There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night.
Objection!
But why? Why would he want to do that? Well, not for his own gain, it would seem. For whose, then? Who could benefit? Mr. Drebber is obviously lying in order to protect somebody. My goodness, he's shielding someone through the power of perjury? Yes, my lord, and clearly it's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to life to be exposed. Well, counsel, who is it then? Who is this witness trying to protect by lying? Freaking her.
Take that!
Boom, take that. The obvious answer is Dr. Sith. Sith? Whatever do you mean? Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. What are you insinuating? And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor, that would be an unprecedented scandal.
Objection!
We're kind of skipping over the whole how was he buried if he wasn't executed thing. This is beyond a joke. Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life? What you're suggesting would mean that the execution never actually happened. Yes, that's exactly what it would mean.
Objection!
Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape, not in Great Britain.
Objection!
But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging. If that were really true, counsel, the implications of misconduct would not stop at the supervising coroner. It would taint the honor of the entire judiciary from the ground up. It would be like if there was a box owned by someone named Pandora and you opened it. And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Sith would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that meant being complicit in a crime. You mean? I mean that Dr. Sith wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Asman with the waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report. Lord Van Zeeks.
Pray, forgive my freshly filled hollowed chalice and a whole raft of other discourtesies now. Goodness me! It's just the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer, rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover-up, a conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing.
What's that?
If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night, only to be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger and disposed of him forever?
Well, I have no idea at the moment. We have too little information to work that out at present, I think. I couldn't agree more.
The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies.
Ugh.
And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend?
Considered what?
Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary.
Quite. Hard to imagine any sum of money being offered for research could warrant it. To rely on some stage deception when so much is at stake would be madness. I suppose.
And this was no petty crime either. The victim was perjured.
Murdered. Slightly less serious.
A man who'd already invested money into the venture and would be instrumental in future profits too. Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Asman at all. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me not receiving 1 pence? The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim, no? There is the contract, that's very true.
The motive for this case runs deep, though. I can feel it. Using threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme, especially for a government grant that he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place. If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Asman's life would have made no sense anyway. Which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asman. But why? What was his motive then?
Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we?
Asians are very skilled dodgers, fortunately.
How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country?
At this point, I am not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence. All right, who exactly was Mr. Asman to Drebber? There's a connection there that no one has seen yet and that no evidence points to, and I'm going to have to present 2 pieces. What? Oh man, they're like, really don't brute force here. No guessing. Yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes a motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here. This is going to be hard to piece together because I still wasn't even convinced that Asmund is definitely dead, I'm like, maybe this was all done to fake his death for some reason. Like, to get rid of Albert Harebrained. I don't know. Could I present the head and the key and be like, well, if you take the mask off of this waxwork, then that'll be my evidence. That'll prove everything. But the key doesn't appear to be in the motive. Oh, could this have anything to do with it? The lost cat. Well, that'll probably be case number 5. Is find the cat. You and your smug bird. He's wearing the monocle because he lost an eye. When... Did he kill him, like, purely because, hey, you drew this illustration. You were the reporter that reported on this and is this trophy here because he got this before? Okay, so maybe he wasn't before. I tried to present the trophy because it was like, oh, this disproves that he, like, his reputation was ruined and he dropped out of school. But if he really did, then maybe this is it. It's like he really loved being a scientist, and because Odie Asmund was the guy, like, we didn't even establish that, but his signature is on there. Or do I need to present the contract because it has the signature on it? All right, like, I want the trophy to be for something, but I think maybe it's these two pieces. That's why they're saying present these two, because the signature is on both of them. Let's do it.
Take that!
Drebber's contract. Mr. Drebber, I have here the contract that you signed with Mr. Asmund.
Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man.
No, I'm afraid not. As it turns out, this contract actually helps to establish the real motive for the murder you committed.
It does? Well, I never.
What are you talking about?
Read it again, you idiot.
I'm not finished. In order to demonstrate what your motive really was, I need this contract and one other piece of evidence.
What other evidence? Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence, which when cross-referenced with the contract, establishes a motive for the deed.
Take that!
It's this newspaper article, my lord.
That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us?
Yeah, I guess if I had picked either one of them, then I would have gotten a special message saying, oh, this, such and such. So I would know that I was on the right track.
That drivel should never have been written. It's typical gutter press nonsense that means nothing.
Objection!
But there's something significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common.
Really?
And it's that common link that shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Odie Asman.
It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed.
Also true.
So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common.
Take that!
What these two pieces of evidence have in common is a signature.
A signature?
The signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person.
What?
As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Asman's signature at the bottom.
Let me see now. Good Lord, yes, they're identical.
In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was Mr. Odie Asman's twin brother, who has the same name. You ask if they want ice cream, they both say yes.
But explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asman?
Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Drebber talked about that article in his testimony.
Grave robbing, you say? Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir. Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article.
This is killing my voice. At the time, you were a student of the University of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life.
So Mr. Asman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he? He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Asman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter.
He killed the guy, he killed the frames, killed my voice. So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything, even this trophy that I stole from your house. Eventually, you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the science shadows. And all because of that article, written by Mr. Asman.
Enough! Stop this endless drivel about my life's candle.
What?
Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber. Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as the result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
What do you mean? I'm unfamiliar with that expression. We don't have straw in Japan, or camels. Or backs. Or brakes.
Almost every student of science at the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research. But they struggled on with their hypotheses anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some wretch or other, after all. Good gracious! Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. I was a dum-dum who was very bad at science. I don't even have a cup with my name on it.
I do, though. I have a cup with my name on it. It says that I'm very good at Final Fantasy XIV science.
Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a wrench.
The drop that caused the barrel to spill over. I see. That is a fun fact.
Being forced out of the university because of Lowgate was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that?
Of course I do. Who is better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me?
I don't know, maybe a little something called the Royal Society of Science? I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all.
How dare you?
And I have evidence to prove it.
How are you in a position to say anything about me? I don't know you from Adam. Fine. If you think you have evidence, go ahead. Show it. Alamigo and Garlemald and science be damned!
Take that!
I didn't even look at the question, actually. I just knew that we were building up to this. Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found it at your workshop. It's not stealing.
Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science? What exactly is this trophy, Council?
It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord, and this is back in the 1900s when we didn't give out participation trophies.
There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future. Good gracious!
Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? You even could have gotten into Hope's Peak Academy if you wanted. Even then, you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Asmund was, but when it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life, it's abundantly clear, even without evidence. It's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man. We're definitely jumping to a conclusion there.
The truth is...
Finally, he's going to break down in a funny way. Oh, is it Strongheart? Is he going to bust in and be like, you guys are having an illegal court? Oh, it's her. Fine. Clearly this has run its course now.
What?
I admit it. All of it. Why? What?
What are you doing?
It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim, on the condition that he kept my dirty secret from 10 years ago.
No. Good Lord! Dr. Sith, do you realize what you're saying, woman?
It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Sith, you will go along with my plan. From someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night 10 years ago. All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now.
Why on earth would you buckle now?
Well, there's no point in trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborate in a murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I am finished. This almost seems like they just ran out of questions for us to ask. It's definitely weird that the trophy was the final thing. The final thing that we did was present the trophy, and then he didn't fold, but she folded. She was like, you know. So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplice has admitted everything for some reason.
Surely it goes without saying.
You admit your part in it too, then?
I admit nothing at all.
What?
Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting to a crime, there's really no possible way for you to prove I did anything wrong.
Well, I mean, if she testifies about what you did, that's pretty good evidence. No!
Order! Order!
Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zieks,
Yes?
I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course. Are they gonna unlock the face? Is that the next part?
I've heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court. This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrain. Very true. It had slipped my mind.
Isn't he one of your closest friends?
As the court has heard, Dr. Sith has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt.
You mean...
At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection? None, my lord.
Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. You've proven Professor Hairbrain's innocence.
Without further ado, then, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss.
I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. Why did Dr. Sith suddenly admit to it like that? Is everything alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Like you said before, the way the trial is set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. But is that really what we want? I have to think carefully about this. What the defense should be pushing for now is... Can I save it? I'm curious if there's a bad end. No, obviously we're just gonna get a but thou must. If the judge gives his verdict now, Professor Hairbrain will be found not guilty without any doubt. Is something troubling you, perhaps? Do you want to pick the other option, idiot? Yes. But it's probably nothing. In the antechamber during the recess earlier, I did give Mr. Sholmes my word, though, didn't I? I told him I'd pursue any doubts I had about the truth to the absolute last. If you gave Mr. Sholmes your word, then thou must. And it means there's only one right answer here, which you didn't pick. Yes, you're right. I don't know why I was ever wavering.
Objection!
The defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord.
I beg your pardon?
We demand one final testimony.
What? You do realize I'm about to adjudicate in favor of your client, I presume?
Arguably, we should be disbarred for this.
What are you playing at now, my Nipponese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that.
Mr. Naruhodo, what exactly are you thinking? The truth, the whole truth, and a way to bring it all out into the open. Right. Yes, in hindsight...
Oh yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bitter bone. A bone with a bitter end. To the bitter end, you understand? Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. A bitter bone with bitter salt on it.
I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. He must have deduced that this would happen. Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my client and to secure an acquittal.
Obviously.
But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty to the court to pursue the whole truth of the case until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Sith. Testimony from me? About what? About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber. Huh! In case it's escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time. Ugh! As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point protracting this business further with another tedious cross-examination.
Objection.
Pray, forgive my careless handling of that hollowed bottle. I slipped. Kamimashita.
That's what you call it?
What is your objection, Lord Van Zeeks? The prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness.
Don't be stupid.
If there is more to this case than has yet come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end of the salted bone.
You'll what?
Lord Van Zeeks. This is most irregular, to say the least. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I will uphold the request. Dr. Sith, you will testify for the court, explaining the full extent of your involvement with the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber.
Very well. I thought we were gonna go to I thought we were gonna have a save point and then a final thing. Do we keep going? 10 minutes to 9? I guess we finish up the case. Sure, why not? It all began at the scene when I saw the waxwork and the note tucked inside its jacket. The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job. I enlisted the help of the entire forensic investigation team to dress the scene appropriately. The truth about the execution 10 years ago is a state secret of the highest level. I had to protect it. But why? So I was right. The stage and the machine were all specially designed for the deception. So it seems. And all meticulously prepared, and all of it depended on a green weather balloon just happening to float to exactly the right spot at the right time, and my crossbow not missing. So it seems, and all meticulously prepared. You did well to see through it. You're a very shrewd boy. So kind of you to say. And what about this autopsy report, then? All I did was record the location of the body as being in the Crystal Tower, instead of under the stage. That's all? That's a terrible corruption. Only my team were aware of the deceit, and then only under my explicit instructions. Nobody else at Scotland Yard knew anything about it, I assure you.
We must be thankful for small mercies, I suppose. Well, I believe the testimony has clarified everything. There's no particular need for a cross-examination, I would say.
No, I disagree. I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. Just look at that expression on Dr. Sith's face. It's the defense's right to cross-examine any witness following testimony. What is it about you Japanese that makes you all so doggedly persistent?
Very well. If you so desire, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination. However, if you present anything wrong, then your client will still go to jail. You only have one life left.
What? What happens if I lose my last hit point here? It might be a special game over. Now see here, it all began at the scene. Then what is my armband doing on my arm?
Objection.
That last statement is bad.
Thank you, counsel. That will do.
But my lord, wait! The defense is still in the process of establishing its argument.
No further analysis is necessary. I shall be requesting the final decisions of the members of the jury.
So it's not a special game over.
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty!
Kill me.
Can't the judge be like, weren't any members of the jury paying any attention at all?
Mr. Albert Hairbrain! Why? Good job, jurors. Let's get this real quick. What's the deal with the body? So you knew about the special construction of the stage used to carry out the trick then. It was quite obvious what had happened with the victim and the waxwork. And you switched the two over, didn't you? In other words, you recorded the victim's body as having been discovered in the Crystal Tower. And the waxwork? I wrapped it and sent it by carriage to the specified address at the specified time. And why were you given such directions?
Presumably so that it could be recovered by Drebber and returned to Madame Two-Spells.
I see. And then you put the birdcage back on the experimentation stage? Yes, although someone obviously made a mistake about which cage should go where. I thought I'd made it perfectly clear to the team, but still. I suppose you were focused on the victim's body, that being a more important detail.
Hold it!
So is she gonna say that she stabbed the body? Like, did he die from falling? And then she stabbed him? Yes, the instructions in the engineer's note said something along the lines of, fabricate some evidence to make it clear that Hairbrain alone could have killed Asman. So, you mean that was your doing? I fetched Hairbrain's ridiculous screwdriver from the stage and took it with me, alone, to the abyss under the stage where the birdcage had fallen.
Alone, Doctor?
I didn't feel it would be appropriate to involve anybody else in that particular part of the deception. There was a void under the stage where I found the birdcage lying in the dirt. I approached it, leaned down, and slowly opened it up. Then, I took the screwdriver in both hands and plunged it into the man's chest. Isn't he probably not dead? I mean, a fall from 30 feet. I mean, it could break your back and or your neck and kill you. But for him to be counting on that, for him to be like, here is a letter, go under the stage where the guy is dead and stab him, like really banking on the fact that he wouldn't survive the fall. And then you noted that in your then you noted that in your fake autopsy report as a fictitious cause of death. Exactly.
So, the actual cause of death was...
the trauma resulting from the 30-foot drop.
My word.
What is it, Miss Usato? Something about Dr. Sith's last statement is playing on my mind, that's all. Yes, mine too. Wait a minute, I've got it. He put strychnine all over the inside of the birdcage so that if Odie Asman licked it, he would die before falling. Dr. Sith. There's really no need to shout. I can hear you perfectly well. The defense calls for you to add what you just said to your formal testimony. Oh. Which part? What I want her to supplement her testimony with is... The real cause of death being the fall of 30 feet. That part. Fine, if that's what you want. Just stop yelling, please.
The prosecution concurs. Very well. We'll supplement your testimony now, witness.
If you wish, my lord.
Hold it!
You're quite sure of that? It was as a result of a broken neck? Yes. As a professional, that was more than apparent. You'd never know just by looking at the photograph of the victim, though, would you? No, that's very true. Obviously not. Which is precisely why coroners are needed to determine the actual facts. Yes. Assuming they can be trusted.
There is no point in calling her assessment into question without evidence. Let's get back to the testimony.
If he had shoulder straps in, it does seem weird that he would break any... I mean, I guess 30 feet is a long... It is a long fall.
Hold it!
Alright, let's switch the statement. Let's switch the statement. Fast forward. I guess this counts as new because at the end he's gonna say something a little bit different. Yes, yes. You know, if you think it would be appropriate, I'm sure you could ask Dr. Sith to change this up. Yes, yes, that was the idea. Dr. Sith, what you said before about what you did to the victim's body, I believe that may be significant. So could you change your supplementary statement to explain that instead? Very well. So it was you who stabbed Asmund with this. Yes, far easier than dissection, I assure you. No precision required. What a welcome change. The victim died instantly from a snapped neck. All I did was carry out the instructions I'd been given.
As unflinchingly as ever, no doubt. I imagine you didn't bat an eyelid when you drove the weapon into his body.
There was no need to bat my eyelids. And what else did you do to twist the facts? Remind the court, why don't you? If you wish. She would have to open the cage, right? Is that it? Stood over the victim. Right, it's not like it was open. Or did they just show it in that little cinematic and I wasn't paying attention? I'm gonna try it.
Objection!
Nope, no good. Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum. Can I present the screwdriver? Like, it's very small.
Hold it!
The entire team in perverting the course of justice? My team consists of the very best investigators there are. I demand loyalty from all members. We operate on a code of chivalry of sorts. You aid and abet a murderer, commit perjury, which is even worse, and dare talk of chivalry? It was a matter of priorities. What? Nothing was more important than protecting the secret of the professor. My team did what was necessary without losing sight of their primary goal. I consider their conduct exemplary. Don't concede the point, Mr. Naruhodo. You mustn't let her win. I need a lawyer. Take that silence as tacit acceptance. Now, can we move on?
Hold it!
So I'd like to know more about this, even though obviously it's going to be one of the other two things. But at what cost? Faith in Scotland Yard is going to suffer a terrible blow as a result of this.
And your precious secret is out now anyway.
Yes, as you say. And I take full responsibility.
Blow me down, Dr. Seth.
Surely there was some other way you could have protected the secret. No, there really wasn't. I've done my utmost, believe me. In many ways, I respect your determination. Whew, nearly froze under that cold stare as she said that. I do believe she was being genuine, though, Mr. Naruhodo. So that's her story. Well, that's my story. She's admitted to everything and revealed her full involvement in the crime. I do wonder if there could really be much more to it. Well, I don't know, but I just have a feeling. Do you? The truth is, I find it strange too. How those two are reacting to this in completely opposite ways, I mean. Yes, exactly. For some reason, I feel sure they're still trying to hide something.